The responsibility assumption. Imagine you're walking through a hospital corridor at midnight, watching exhausted doctors make decision after decision that will ripple through countless lives. Each choice carries weight that extends far beyond the immediate moment. You notice how they carry themselves, some with quiet confidence, others with visible tension in their shoulders, all of them bearing something invisible yet profound. What if the very assumption of responsibility, the thing we think gives our lives meaning, is also what creates our deepest suffering? The responsibility assumption presents us with a curious paradox. The more seriously we take our role as conscious agents in the world, the heavier our existence becomes. Yet without this assumption, life seems to lose its very foundation. We simultaneously need to believe we're responsible for our choices, while recognizing that this belief can become a prison of endless self-judgment and anxious control. It's the strange dance between owning our lives completely and letting go of the illusion that we're in charge of outcomes. On one hand, taking responsibility feels like the cornerstone of maturity and ethical living. You make decisions, you face consequences, you learn and grow through the feedback loop of action and result. This assumption gives weight to your choices and meaning to your struggles. When you succeed, there's genuine satisfaction in knowing you contributed to that success. When you fail, there's dignity in acknowledging your role rather than blaming external forces. On the other hand, this same assumption can become a relentless burden. You find yourself lying awake at 3 in the morning, replaying conversations and wondering if you said the right thing. You carry guilt for outcomes that were influenced by hundreds of factors beyond your control. The assumption of responsibility expands until you're somehow accountable for your family's happiness, your team's performance, even the mood of strangers you encounter. What began as healthy ownership transforms into an impossible weight. Consider the parent watching their adult child make choices they disagree with. Years of nurturing have created a deep sense of responsibility for this person's well-being, yet the reality is clear. You cannot live another person's life for them. The assumption tells you that you should have done something differently, that their struggles reflect your failures. But wisdom whispers that love sometimes means accepting your limits, that responsibility has boundaries that honor both your efforts and another's autonomy. Think about the leader of a struggling organization. Every decision feels magnified, every outcome a reflection of personal competence or failure. The weight of others' livelihoods sits heavy on your shoulders. Yet markets shift, economies fluctuate, and countless variables dance beyond any individual's influence. The responsibility assumption demands that you own every result, while reality insists that control is largely an illusion. You're simultaneously crucial and insignificant, powerful and powerless. The deepest layer of this paradox touches something fundamental about conscious existence itself. Consciousness seems to create the experience of being a separate self who makes choices, and with this experience comes the automatic assumption that you're responsible for what follows. It's as if awareness itself generates the sense of being the author of your thoughts, the director of your actions, the architect of your life. Yet when you look closely at the mechanism of choice, the picture becomes mysteriously unclear. Thoughts arise without your permission. Emotions emerge from depths you don't control. Even your values and preferences were shaped by forces, genetics, culture, experience, that preceded your conscious involvement. You feel responsible for choices that emerge from a process you don't fully understand or direct. It's like being credited as the composer of a symphony you're actually hearing for the first time as you play it. This doesn't diminish the reality that your responses matter. When kindness flows through you, it creates genuine warmth in the world. When you act with courage, real change becomes possible. The paradox isn't that responsibility is meaningless. It's that the felt sense of being personally responsible might be both necessary and false, both burden and blessing, both trap and liberation. Perhaps the resolution lies not in solving this paradox, but in learning to dance with it more gracefully. You can act with full commitment while holding your sense of control lightly. You can own your choices without carrying the weight of all outcomes. You can be serious about your responses without taking yourself so seriously that every mistake becomes a crisis of identity. The Stoics understood something profound about this balance. They taught that you're responsible for your responses, but not for results, responsible for your efforts, but not for outcomes, responsible for your character, but not for how others receive your actions. This creates a strange freedom, the freedom to care deeply while releasing desperate attachment to specific results. In this space, responsibility transforms from a burden into something closer to art. You learn to respond with care without the crushing pressure of guaranteed success. You discover that you can be deeply committed to positive action while accepting that life is largely beyond your control. The assumption softens into something more workable. Perhaps you're responsible for showing up authentically rather than for orchestrating particular outcomes. As you settle into this understanding tonight, notice how it feels to imagine responsibility as a practice rather than a weight. You're responsible for bringing your best to each moment, not for ensuring that your best produces perfect results. You're responsible for learning from experience, not for never making mistakes. You're responsible for caring, not for controlling what you care about. It's not about solving the paradox of responsibility. It's about noticing how life flows more easily when you stop fighting with its fundamental mystery.